In this TreeRing demonstration, we're going to show you how to configure time rounding rules. Employee work time can be rounded based on the clock or the employee's schedule. Independent rounding policies can be configured and applied for different groups of employees. The rounding policies form sets the standard clock-based rounding rules. Standard punch rounding can be used in conjunction with schedule-based rounding, configured under Configuration, Rule Setup, Schedule Templates. Schedule rounding takes priority. Therefore, any punches that fall outside the schedule rounding rules will be rounded by the punch rounding rules. Rounding rules are assigned to employees in the rounding policies form, found Configuration, Rule Setup, Rounding Policies. Note, time center will never change the start or end time of a punch. Rounding takes place on the time totals, not the actual punchers. Labor reports will show the actual punch time of each record, but the time totals will reflect the rounding rules. Once a rounding policy is configured and assigned to an employee, all system calculations are based on the rounded work time, not the actual punch time. This includes calculations performed for overtime, end of day, end of pay period, and shift allocation. So, as we said, you go to Configuration, Rule Setup, Rounding, and then click the Add New Rounding Policy. Enter a rounding policy name. We want to round to the nearest 10 minutes, so we're going to call it nearest 10. And this policy description we're going to apply to the assembly line workers, but you can make it anything you want. Now we specify the various rounding rules. The start, this rounding will apply to the work start time only. End, this rounding will apply to the work ending time only. Transfer and switch, this rounding will apply to the switch type punch. The switch punch is used when an employee presses the special switch key on a data collection device to change the department or the job that they're working on. Lunch start, this rounding will apply to the lunch starting time only. Lunch return, this rounding will apply to the lunch ending time only. Break start, if breaks are used, this rounding will apply to the break starting time only. Break return, this rounding will apply to the break ending time only. For each punch type, you can choose whether to round forward to the nearest increment or backwards by clicking on the radio buttons in each row. Forward punches are rounded forward to the nearest number of minutes after the hour. For example, if a user selects forward 15 minutes, the punch will be rounded to 15 minutes after, half past, 45 minutes after, or on the hour. A punch between 6:01 and 6:15 would be rounded to 6:15. The nearest punch are rounded to the nearest time. If a time is evenly between two entries, it's rounded backwards. If the user selects nearest 15 minutes, the punch will be rounded to 00, 15, 30 minutes, or 45, whichever is nearest. For example, a punch at 6:03 becomes 6. A punch at 6:07 will become 6. A punch at 6:57 will become 7. Backward. Punches are rounded back to the number of selected minutes. For example, if a user selects backward 6 minutes, the punch will be rounded backward to 0, 0, 06, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, and 54 minutes. A punch at 6:08 would become 6:06. In the minutes field, enter the amount of minutes you want to round for each punch type. Note, the assumption of 0 minutes and 60 minutes is always made at the start and end point for the rounding. A time being rounded backwards will go to 00 at most. A time being rounded forward will be rounded to the nearest hour at most. For example, if a user enters 22 as the number of minutes, the program will be rounding to 00, 22, 44, and 60, not 66 minutes. In the shift threshold field, Enter the amount of time in minutes that need to go by when an employee is off the clock in order for the time center to decide if the next start punch should be rounded as a start or as a switch type punch. A small number such as 5 minutes works well to round the punch as a start. And for our example, we're going to round forward everything 10 minutes. Click Save. And now you can assign the employees. Click the Assign Employees button. Here you can select all the employees that you wish to have apply. Remember, if an employee is previously signed to another rounding policy, you will need to deselect them from that policy first. And click Confirm. And you've assigned the policy. Thank you for watching this video on how to configure time rounding policies. Check out our other videos on the TreeRing channel.